All right. So if you didn't know, M. Night Shyamalan has a daughter, and she directed a movie. I'm pretty sure I know how she got the funding for that movie. But is it as good as her father's? We're gonna talk about The Watchers up next on the Entertainment Jungle. Listen, she's still dating.
I really like the question. Is it as good as her father's? Because that is what a range.
Well, that is a question. That is a question we're going to talk about in a second. But before we get into it, we're going to talk about The Watchers. It was out in the theaters, but you can watch it now on HBO Max. And as always, the IMDb description is: a young artist gets stranded in an extensive, immaculate forest in Western Ireland, where, after finding shelter, she becomes trapped alongside 3 strangers, stalked by mysterious creatures each night. So, once again, kind of good. We'll talk about her being an artist in a second, but let me get some overall thoughts from the group here on The Watchers. And I want to start with, I don't know if this is really a horror movie, but I want to start with Ryan the Lion, because he's kind of our resident horror person. But,
ooh, is this classified as a horror movie?
Well,
it's got to be classified as something.
IMDb classifies it as a thriller, mystery, horror, fantasy, which...
I was going to say, I think fantasy is the appropriate category for it, because it's essentially a fairy tale. But
so, we'll do overall thoughts, and then we're going to get into spoilers like right away.
Yeah.
Let's do non-spoiler overall thoughts to start. What do you got for us?
Yeah, this was a weird movie. I don't... Yeah, I struggled with this one a little bit. Like, there were definitely things that I liked. I think that some of the performances were pretty good. The story was interesting, but I had a lot of issues with it ultimately.
Right.
Yeah, it just it didn't quite hit for me. The Night Shyamalan family just isn't doing it for me recently.
I did read a part of a review that said the apple didn't fall far from the tree, but I wish it rolled further away. And I was like, that's a weird way to say that. But let's get into we'll keep it brief for now. So let's go with 66 overall thoughts.
It definitely kept my interest throughout the movie, which I think is a good thing. But I definitely did not really enjoy the movie throughout the whole thing. I found myself really frustrated for most of the movie. I thought there were a few really intriguing parts, but for the most part, it's kind of like, you know what's going to happen. Can we just fast forward 45 minutes to when the excitement starts? Or, you know, the whole intrigue. We'll get into it, but not really a big fan.
All right. Walter?
Same
Oh,
as everybody
man.
else.
I really hoped Walter was going to be like, wow, I love this.
No, this was a little disappointing, kind of very predictable and just very confusing. It was a hard watch. It really was. I'm a huge M. Night fan, but, you know, his daughter, I didn't even know it was hers until after the fact. I was like, it's the same type of movie he's always doing, and then it was bad. I did not enjoy it.
I want to say, like, the beginning and like some of the middle were fine, but then maybe when it started to unravel, maybe. But so I will say I agree, it was fine. I did kind of like it. I do like, and this is where I'll put up the spoilers right away, is I like how it went a little more supernatural or fantasy and not like real, like her father's one of his latest movies, like Knock at the Cabin, was kind of more like realism, I guess, with the characters. So I was okay, but I think they could have leaned into it harder, I guess, the fantasy. But let's go into my biggest problem. I maybe don't know what fairies are, or what they think fairies are, but this entire time, I thought it was vampire. Did anybody else think it was? So
no,
they couldn't go into the light. They shapeshifted. I assumed it was vampires.
No.
I totally thought it was vampires.
Oh, there you go.
So, I want to know if you can explain to me the lore behind Fit. Now, I know Disney, like I know unicorns in like real mythology are like the vicious creatures, and like everything kind of gets played around and twisted. But my question was, do I not know what fairies are, or did they make this up? Or did you think it was vampires, which 66 did? Thank you for that.
Oh, I will say that I don't know what fairies are. I'll start there. But if I had
Same.
to guess, I imagine this is much closer to what the origin of fairies are than what we know as fairies. Because honestly, like in most like mythic folklore and stuff, creatures were like, fantasy creatures were pretty dangerous, more or less. And then like Disney took them and it like made them like fun for kids. So if I had to guess, I am under the impression that this is probably closer to like the origins of fairy folklore than what we know as fairies. So that part didn't really bother me so much.
Okay.
But I do not know. I have no basis for this other than just generally, I feel like typically folklore is darker than the version that we get through, ultimately Disney most of the time.
I agree with that.
I tend to agree with you, Ryan. And then I found myself thinking that for a split second, maybe a couple moments. And then I thought to myself, does it really matter? I mean, there's just these monsters in the woods and they're just fairies and they made this lore up. And I don't even care if it's accurate or not. I still think it was kind of silly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like, even if this is 100% accurate to like fairy lore, it does not make me enjoy it any more or less, really.
I do want to say, well, unless Walter, you want to chime in on our fairy vampire conversation first? Okay.
Well, I definitely didn't think anything of vampires. But then again, I didn't care whether it was fairies, vampires.
I feel like
it didn't matter.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like there was like a split second where I thought it could be vampires, but it was very fleeting.
Well, then you see them and you're kind of thinking to yourself, are these just other people that have been lost and transformed? Kind of like a vampire zombie-ish thing. That's kind of what I thought it was.
That might have been cool.
People got lost. The guy was the guy that was climbing the tree in the beginning that didn't know how to put his backpack on both shoulders for running, but just put it on one shoulder so it messes up how you climb. Okay. That guy that sucked into the hole by the Watchers, I was thinking, oh, maybe he turned into one of them, and that's why. Well, we're into spoilers, I guess, but that's why you could hear his voice, kind of a thing, through the door. So that's where my mind went halfway through.
Interesting.
I think I would have liked that better.
It was definitely not vampires for me because there was nothing to do with blood. I mean, isn't that like the most important thing to do? Why would you just be watching them, not sucking their blood? So vampires, it couldn't have been.
All right, fine. I'm okay with all of this. Like I said, I'm okay with you spitting.
But then you saw the birds, right? And you're thinking, okay, the birds, are they bats? Are they,
the birds or bats thing. However, I was disappointed that once you finally get the kind of reveal, you don't really see the creatures that much. Like they're in darkness, and you don't really see it. Like I wish that was more into it. I don't know.
That doesn't really bother me either, because honestly, I feel like a lot of times keeping some of the mystery can be beneficial. Like I feel like in the original A Quiet Place, I preferred that approach than to like A Quiet Place Day One, where you see them the whole time. Like they're just like hundreds, thousands of them running around, versus like, no, there's like one or two that you kind of see for like most of the movie. I feel like that a lot of times is a better way to build I mean, and again, like I think this movie was just frustrating for me because there were kinds of like opportunities and moments where it was like, oh yeah, you're kind of doing something, but ultimately, I mean, if I had to compare this to any of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, it would probably be, in my opinion, super close to Lady in the Water, which I think is maybe his worst movie.
I actually enjoyed that one compared to this one.
Did you? I mean,
Yeah.
but again, it's literally it's just like kind of like just a straightforward fairy tale
I
story.
can see why you're comparing that.
Fairy tale.
And like there's no twist, there's no surprise really. It's just kind of like here's this story about these fantasy creatures that you don't know anything about yet, and here it is. It's like, thanks.
So let's kind of maybe go in a little bit of order here. Let's talk about first of all, there was a weird scene in the beginning. Did anyone notice how like you didn't see any of the faces of like the other characters she was talking to, and
Yes.
she wore that like wig, and I didn't I mean, she just
Which
wanted to
didn't
be a
make it didn't
person.
add anything to the
That's
movie.
what I'm,
Okay,
that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah.
maybe this was an attempt at what's the daughter's name? M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
Ishana.
Yeah, I think it's Ishana.
So maybe it's her attempt at, you know, getting you attached to the character. Like she has to travel with this bird and she's going out because she's lonely and she's not connected to her family. But it didn't really work for me. I think mostly because of the dialogue and the events were super meaningless. The only thing that came back at the end was she had a bird with her.
Well,
So that like kind of helped, I suppose. But, you know,
yeah, but
a
this
lot
part
of the
right here, I don't know why she had to put the wig. I mean, I get what
Right.
you're saying makes sense actually.
I think it's her. I think it's the director's attempt at getting you attached to that character so you feel something, but it just didn't work, whether it was the writing or honestly the acting, probably both.
Yeah, I also think that's kind of like her way of like disconnecting from the world. Like she like puts on this wig and can like hide behind it because she doesn't like. I think that she tries to hide away from like the world and like who she really is. Like, 'cause she thinks she's a bad person. She says
Yeah.
that like throughout the movie because of what happened when she was young. It's
Correct. Well, but even if you take all that into consideration, and the fact that her boss is just going to let her drive like hundreds of miles to deliver this bird for no, the forest. Can we talk about
Whoa,
the
hold on.
forest for a little? Oh, did I miss
Let's go back.
something already?
I just want to go back real quick. So,
Yeah.
was the boss in on it? Because
So
no.
because they
don't
showed
think
his
so.
face, right? So
Yeah.
the blurred face part, would that be part of he's one of them, or something?
No,
like that?
because they can't.
Why would-
None of them can get out.
well,
Well,
We
no,
can
no,
talk
not
about
a
that,
single
yeah.
We don't know
fairy.
about-
Not a
we're
single
not up to
fairy
that
can get
part
out.
yet.
Not a
There's a
single
big
fairy
problem
can
in a
get
hole with that later on about
Well,
that.
not necessarily. And they explain it.
No, they didn't. They dropped the ball. I
Wow.
think at the end. We'll get when we get.
I
there.
don't have quote fingers right now, but they explained it. But anyway, I don't know if he was in on it, but he definitely let her go into this forbidden forest. I don't think he. I just thought it was funny that like these people supposedly no one knows who they are, right? So they disappear. But it seems like I don't know. He just sent her, but
I kind of see what whoever said. Walter, did you say that the boss
he
was
could
in
be
on it?
That'd be
So
interesting, actually.
here's kind of my thought, and maybe this is actually goes with Walter's point, is okay, this forest is so hard to find, right? Once you go in, you never come out, which means there's only been like 4 people that have got, like no one's gone in there. It's been 8 months. How many years? Some of them have been there, and there's only 3 of them. There were 4. So it's really hard to find. This lady, Nina or whatever her name is, Dakota is driving to deliver this bird with a GPS, and the GPS takes her directly into the forest and then craps out. So, I mean, why is the GPS taking you through this forest that no one knows exists? That's
how-
That was my
But how could the
question.
boss be responsible for that? That's like a glitch in technology, if anything.
Well, there's a glitch anyway. How in the world did someone order a bird to go there when there's no technology in there?
Well, she was
Well,
trying to
no,
go
that's-
through the forest.
Yeah, I
right?
think it was just
Oh,
supposed to be like a
But
throughway.
it couldn't have been like, oh, because she was talking to the bird a lot, which also annoyed me. I
She
think it was
did.
another attempt at like connecting to the character,
Well-
which completely failed. But maybe
But the bird
she could have
comes
said to the
back.
bird,
I get that.
oh, look, there's a shortcut. We'll go this way through the forest. No, the GPS took her the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, but it goes to what Walter said. My whole point was, how is the forest just like that confusing that people get lost? And what?
No,
what
I think
keeps them
you-
in this forest. Something
So I believe
physical.
it's not that the forest does anything to keep you in. Like I think that for whatever reason, like her car broke just because of the forest. I don't really get what makes that
I know
happen.
her radio was glitching and all the
Yeah, like I
all
don't
the very
get what
standard.
because everything in that building worked fine. They had a TV. I don't know. It's very silly.
Her non-electric car that didn't run on
Yeah,
technology.
it made no sense. Made no sense. However, the reason once you get to that little like house or whatever, the reason they were trapped is because they said there was no way to get from that point out of the forest before nightfall.
Yes.
That was the issue because
Okay.
it's just too
All right.
far. Like at that point, you're too far in. Like it's apparently like right smack in the center, and any direction is too far.
And there was a
You just won't
generator
make
below it.
You won't make it in
right?
time. Nightfall will come, and you'll die.
Okay, because there was a because then her drawing, which the IMDb description leans into her being an artist, but her drawing of the forest comes into play a little bit. But I feel like I guess that's this.
But
far as you
also,
can go.
I mean, what we learn at the end could very well be that the one person telling them the rules was lying to them. But
That is
the
also
explanation that she gives
well,
is
that's one of my next
that there's no
questions.
way that we can make it out before nightfall. Which again, we basically learn is wrong. They weren't even like running, and they made it.
To the boat.
Yeah.
And then when they made it to the boat, they're like, "Can they swim?" It's like they're like, "I don't know," something like that, right? So let's talk about actually the old woman. I guess we'll call her, right? The
Sure.
old woman in the
Ma-
in the show. Yes.
Yeah.
Madeline. So I thought early on, I guess my question is like that she was some kind of double agent. I called it. Obviously, that's not what she was. Like you knew something was wrong. But I guess I want to talk about. I mean, I'll get into some broader terms, but I also was like, well, how do they know about this professor character, which we meet super late, and I'm really confused at how he built all of the bunker stuff there.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna come right out and say it, but
Yeah.
she's the offspring of the professor and a fairy.
No.
No, really?
He
No.
just happened upon her. She was the offspring of some other human and a fairy.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And that particular fairy human halfling is what they call them.
Mhm.
That one, I think the professor was trying to get that fairy halfling to emulate and mimic his actual wife that had passed years before. So the point was to get that fairy to be his wife.
And essentially, I believe that it's alluded to that was his entire motivation for going to this forest to studying these creatures is because he knew that they had the ability to mimic humans, and he wanted to use that ability to bring back his dead wife.
Okay, because I got super confused once
Same.
again. Like, with all the videos, I thought maybe this was his offspring, and then I'm like, that's weird.
No, he basically says like, "Hey, I met one. It like originally looked like a little redheaded girl, and for whatever reason, this one is much better at mimicking people than the other ones that I've encountered so far. Which is the reason that he captures it and tries to train it to mimic his wife because it already had a superior ability, just innately."
And if I remember correctly, like that, the halfling that was a little girl in a red dress or whatever could actually go in the daylight, which is why I think he had interactions with her. If I remember, I could be wrong about that, but
you're right.
obviously she can go in the daylight.
Yeah.
So I think that was like, oh, and they became whatever, then trapped it.
Wait, but so did this Madeline or whenever the little girl version, was she ever in the town, or was she always in the forest until he showed up?
No, she was always in the forest.
All right. So you're explaining some things. It's not helping. But you're
No,
No. I mean, I feel like I understood this movie perfectly. I just did not care.
Okay.
And well, I mean, there were definitely a lot of things that did not have explanations, but like I think the overall story I understood it, but like I don't understand like who's paying for the electricity How is there?
It's a generator, but where's that generator being?
Where's the
powered?
gas
Is it
coming
gas?
from? Like, there's no way.
Exactly.
Like, this has been going on for however long. Like,
Wow.
Madeline's been. How long do they intend to keep this going? What is Madeline's motivation at all?
Well,
Being
you kind
in
of
there?
find that
Because
out at
she
the
is
end.
already. Huh?
You
No,
find out at
because
the end.
No.
she says her motivation was to mimic them, right? She's like, I want to learn. She had already perfectly mimicked his wife, which is a person that would allow her to just go out in the world. Why does she have to mimic these people? She can mimic the one that she's already mimicking and go.
Was she trying to train the other watchers?
Because it's
to
not
mimic
like
other
she
people?
needs to mimic 5 people in order to leave. As long as she has successfully mimicked one, which she 100% did, seemingly before any of these people got there, why not just leave then?
So
That's the question I had: is does she even know she can leave? Because
Yeah,
that made
well,
no sense
again,
to me.
like at the end, she's like, I needed to mimic you guys to be able to get out. It's like, but why them?
But why?
Instead of the one that you've already successfully mimicked. Like, what did they add?
well, the
Like
only
that
thing,
isn't explained. Or, like, what was her rationale? Is she just not? Does she just not?
There was a throwaway line when Mina finally finds out that Madeline is whatever, and she's at the house at the end. And there was a throwaway line that Madeline said was, I haven't perfected it yet. And that one line was like, I haven't
know.
perfected.
well,
it
no,
was
I
in-
think-
But she did
Like,
perfect
does
it.
that
I
just
get
mean
you.
that, like, is it kind of like when you like
she's smart.
go,
guy.
like go to the gym all the time but think you're small? Like, is it like?
No, I was
like, no
thinking-
matter how good she gets, is she always going to think she hasn't perfected it and always think she has to continue to study humans? Like, that's the only thing that I didn't understand. Like, if you tell me it's like, no, it's like when you have body dysmorphia and you always think you're small no matter how big you get, then it's like, okay, then I get it.
She needs a therapist more.
She definitely needs a therapist.
I think, what if she's smarter than you think, and the real Madeline was dead, so she needed someone that people just thought were missing to go back into town.
But all she has to do is not go to the town the professor's from.
Actually, that's true.
You can go anywhere else. Or you can even just go make up a new identity, basically. I mean, she clearly understands human interaction.
I mean, I guess so. Yeah.
Like, just go out into the world and, like, she's trying to manipulate all these people. For what, again, what end? I don't understand. Like, she doesn't know their lives. Like, what if, like, these people happened to be criminals and she just, like, goes out and mimics one of them and gets thrown in prison? It's like, that didn't work out. Like, she doesn't know these people. And, like, how long did she wait for the first couple to show up? Like, again, like, so she must have basically been in that box when they showed up. What was she doing in there? Just chilling? She just likes it in there? I don't know.
How many other? And there was a lot of other fairies, right? Like.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't have answers for you. I'm just.
Well, that's.
I'm
I mean,
trying
yeah. Like,
but I like how your biggest problem was.
Everything.
Well, no, like the little things. Like my problem was the half-bloods or the halflings or all that stuff and how they could, like, I guess it wasn't really bringing people back, but how they were like I was trying to analyze all of that.
But, like, that to me is fine because, like, it's a made-up thing to begin with. So if you tell me that's how the made-up thing works, then I'm just gonna take your word for it because there's no other side to it.
Yeah.
Like, you made it up. You made the rules. Go for it. I don't care.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Ryan and I are on the same page for like the first time in a very long time.
I mean, I did wonder how this guy built the bunker years only working during the day because the other, like, the fairies would come out at night. Like, that part was a little.
And
I
they
also
wouldn't,
liked it, like,
destroy it.
Yeah. Right.
every day he would bring people there and those people would get killed and then he would go back to the same town and find more people.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Like-
Yeah. He did say he went back.
Oh
down.
yeah, he hired workers.
Yeah,
to
he would
do it.
hire workers, bring them there, they'd work all day, and then nighttime would come, and he would go
That's
inside
true.
and let them die. And it's like, and every day he went back to this. No, their families questioned it,
That
and
is-
you found more people.
That is.
Yeah.
I remember that line. Once again, I'm like, that's a weird line. I just didn't even.
It's almost like in trying to explain it, you created a larger plot hole. It's like, whoa. How is this many people go missing from the same town and no one questions it?
Yeah.
That's kind of wild.
There's a lot of unexplained things. Like, why can't they just open that hatch cellar? Like, their hands don't turn clockwise. I don't get it. And then, like, how did the halfling that was Madeline end up? Like, how do you catch that thing first of all and put it in that cell, and then how did you get it back upstairs? I don't know.
All right. I don't know if we're ever going to figure out some of these answers, but I did have some other maybe broader questions for you. Like, was it at all suspenseful for you? Like, any moments, classic, like, jump scares or anything like that?
No. I don't think there were any jump scares, really, but I mean, I was definitely intrigued early on because, like, I didn't know anything, and it was definitely setting up something unique. Or seeming.
Okay.
I think I just didn't care enough. Yeah, I didn't care enough to, like, it's just like, okay, here comes a jump scare. I'm like, but I don't really care what they're going to show, so it didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
All right.
In the beginning, I actually, this is one thing that I differ from Ryan, is I wasn't really that intrigued in the beginning because I hated all of the moments with her and the bird and getting to the farm. I was more intrigued once they were in the cabin and they had to follow all these rules. I'm like, okay, why are they following? That was the thing.
Yeah, that's
suspenseful.
That's kind of when I got interested, because early on they weren't doing anything. They were just like setting her up, like, here's her character. Blah blah.
Well, they had to set up the bird. The bird. Come back
Did
at
they?
The end.
Did they?
The bird was like loyal and led them out to safety. What? That happened. I mean, it happened.
Yep. Sure.
The bird's gonna stay with them and not just fly away the whole time.
That bird stayed for months in the bunker with them.
And what did they feed the bird?
Hopefully they weren't catching a lot of birds out there. Maybe rabbits.
That guy broke the neck of some kind of animal that they caught. I don't know. The other part that I wanted to talk about, was the flashback of her past and like her drawing. And I wanted to know, it kind of came back at the end?
Did it?
Like, I meant her drawing. Like, was that?
I mean, it literally did, but was there a point?
Well, that was my question. Like, it actually was brought up again.
Yeah, like it literally comes back, but I don't know why. I don't know why she had a twin sister. I thought that was going to play into the whole doppelganger thing with the fairies, but it didn't. She just had a sister and went and saw her and was like, man, this crazy thing happened to me. And her sister's like, damn, that is crazy. All right.
I kind of thought that too. Like, maybe her sister would have, but they were like estranged, but so she could have came back to town and she was the one that was the mimic or the whatever, the half link or whatever.
Well, yeah, like I thought she was going to get to her sister and then find out that Madeline had killed and mimicked her sister by mimicking her, basically. Like, I was like, oh, that would, because again, what's the point of her having a twin if you're not going to do anything with the twin?
And I'm trying to
with them being twins.
Going back to your point, what was Madeline's purpose for all this? Because she goes back to the town and then just watches.
Right. No, but that's what I mean. Like, at no point in time in this movie did Madeline's motivations make any sense to me.
Because
none.
Our idea here is if she would have mimicked Dakota, Mina, whatever, and then went back and then killed the sister, and then you're like, oh no, this monster's like, what's gonna happen next? Maybe that's the better ending. I don't know, but that makes a little more sense. Like, she wants to get out of the forest and take over the human race, whatever.
And again, like, even when she does get out, then she's just kind of like stalking Mina afterwards. It's like, why? Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? You're now out in the world where you can mimic, I guess, anyone you see if you just follow them long enough. Why are you obsessed with this girl?
Yeah, especially because she's kind of psychotic, has a lot of issues, not successful. I mean, like, out of all the people, that's the one you're gonna follow.
right? Like and again, you've already killed 2 other people. Mimic one of them. Why not have mimicked the professor again? Like if you're like, maybe you didn't want to mimic Madeline because she was dead. All right, so mimic the professor. You had tons of time with him.
Yeah, and then he could have came back because the students even saved his office. That would have been like, oh my
And
god, the professor's back.
Here's a question. So the professor, even after she killed him, can you not mimic someone that's dead? You can still see them. Just mimic the dead version of them. You got tons of time then. Almost limitless.
I've seen that happen in other movies where
yeah. No, Ellen was
dead
either an idiot, poorly written, I don't know, but like her motivations were non-existent to bad.
I mean, I want to say
No
that
argument.
my rating has been going down since we started talking.
I mean, it just, and again, it was just very frustrating because I feel like the general outline of a story could have been interesting, but I also, there was all of the little things that I was like, that might be interesting, were fleeting. And then all the things that I didn't care about was like what they focused on. Like, again, like Madeline, I don't care. She's a very uninteresting character to me because of the way that you have given her nothing that interests me. But then you have so these fairies were trapped in that giant like barrier thing at some point. How did they get out? The thing didn't look damaged.
I would have been more interested in that backstory.
Like, how did they get out of there? They're like, oh, we had to like crawl out. Right. It's like, yeah, but like literally how? That's not an answer.
That would have been a better backstory than the Mina in the car with the twin sister.
Yeah.
I think I solved all the problems, which they didn't explain it.
Ooh.
The reason why the professor was able to build everything is because he went there first before the fairies got out. He built everything he needed to do, and then he opened up the barrier. I don't know how.
No, because he already said that every day the fairies would come and kill the people that were building the thing for him. That was part of how he built it.
I was on your side, Walter, until that one line, which was a terrible.
And again, he already knew that the fairies were there, which was the reason that he went there.
So then there's just another giant hole that we don't know.
Also, how did they trap them in the first place? Because maybe that's a reason why they can't leave the forest also.
No, that's what I mean. Right? Like, how did first off, all these fairies got trapped. They had their magic stolen, I think they said, by the humans. Like, I don't know how. And wings clipped. Like, they're like, the humans did these things to us. It's like, well, that sounds... Well, show me that story. How did we defeat these fairies? It seems like they're very powerful. I'm interested in that. And that just was like glossed over. It's like, no. Here, Madeline, what do you got going on? Nothing interesting? Great, let's stick with it.
How did they get them all into one little forest too?
Exactly.
Over the world, like...
Maybe this isn't. I mean,
and why can't the fairies leave the forest? Like, it seems like there's still some magic holding the fairies there for some reason. Like, it's like, okay, we have the fairies trapped in this underground bunker, but also outside of the underground bunker, we built this giant forest, and we have them trapped inside that giant forest too. It's like, all right, the double coverage, great. How did you do any of that?
They want to leave too because they take people's things. They take like the bicycle, maybe like they steal human objects. Well, why did they do that? To be more like why did they?
I think those things just belonged to people that got stuck in the forest and died.
Yeah, there was no meaning to it.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything other than this is just a collection of things from the people who have been trapped before.
So now I'm looking for meaning in nothing.
No.
Okay.
Story. That's the story of this movie, I'm afraid.
Well, my only other like open-ended question, but I'm sure I missed a bunch, which we'll get to. I'll ask you in a second. Is when the husband came back, that wasn't him, right? That was
correct
fairy. Hey, I got one right.
Yeah,
we all
mimicking him, which again seemed to be doing a really good job. I don't know what the fairies were lacking in the mimicking that they're like, no, we still got to work on this. It's like, do you? Like, it seems like some of them don't have it, but some of them do.
I've also seen this in other movies where the ending could have been all of them in the town, and you don't know which ones are really fairies and which ones are human. You ever see that? Like,
oh, sure.
Where there's like a whole bunch of people, and you're like, I don't know which one's the bad guy is or whatever. Technically,
only the halflings can leave the forest. Which again, so there is no real threat.
But at
from
night.
these fairies.
Yeah. So what is the? Yeah, you're right. Because I
Yeah.
thought it was a night thing.
Like, as long as you don't go to this forest, they can't leave. Madeline can leave, but she's only interested in stalking Mina and being a creepy little girl, which isn't that big of a deal.
The darker twist on this definitely would have been, okay, anyone that's a halfling can leave the forest. So the Watchers actually are trapping the humans to mate with them so that their species can leave.
That would
would
be
have been
cool. That would be a
super
great
dark.
reveal.
And
That
that's
would
why
be-
they're down in that cavern. They're not actually killing you. They're taking you down so that they can create a race of halflings.
Yeah, see? There you go.
That would have been.
But I don't
so
think
much
that the
better.
fairies are that smart.
I
Because-
give that one a 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have made the professor's storyline a little bit better too. Like he was there, and then they were like manipulating him or something.
Right, and then he realized,
Yeah.
like, oh my god, they want to take over. I have to stop them.
What was
But
that
no.
movie where there was like the creatures under the house, not Babylon, with
Oh,
the big mother
I didn't like Barbarian.
Barbarian.
barbarian. I thought it was going to be something like that where they were keeping people down there and they were doing something terrible to them.
Yeah, I mean that would have been more interesting. Again, like the motivations were very, very flimsy. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we have to mimic people. It's like, well, how many centuries do you think it's going to take to pull that off? It seems like you've had a lot of time. I'm sure a lot of people have wandered in here. If you haven't done it yet, maybe come up with a new plan. Maybe just enjoy living in this forest and build little homes instead of living in that hole.
Yeah.
Oh man, we fixed another movie. Put it. I mean, they didn't make that movie, but still. All right. Well, I don't want to say you answered all my questions, but that was a large majority of my questions. Was we talked through, but I'm sure did I miss anything? Did anyone out there? Is there any other questions that are left unanswered? Kind of. Like I'm trying to think about. I mean, like
Did
I said,
anyone even care about this movie?
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, I thought
Not even.
No, not like I meant like before I watched.
It's,
Like, I
they didn't
thought
even
it
do
was
a good job of fleshing out the characters. Like I just didn't care about any of them. It's like, all right, well, you die, good. All right, move on, let's go.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point. Like even the husband and wife, like them, or the other guy, and then there was another person. So was there really an? Oh no, that was the husband. I'm sorry. Where he said
Yeah,
he used to hunt with the other guy and stuff.
Yeah, that was the husband.
So if you didn't even care about the side characters, then when they're in peril, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like,
But how were you supposed to care about them? They kind of sucked.
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
That's my
The
point.
girl was nice, but like, all right, it's fine. And I also like when they got out, they just were like, I guess we'll just go back to living our lives. Let's not mention this to anyone. It's
Yeah,
like,
because
all right.
at the end, actually at the end, yeah, because Madeline mimicked the other girl, right? To
Yep.
for what reason? Once again, what reason? Because was it to you got Dakota Fanning or you got Mina's character there? Like, what was the rest of the plan?
Don't know.
Killer?
Very unclear, very pointless, lacking motivation, just like the rest of the movie.
Man,
They tried to tie it in with her killing her mother, not really killing her, but blaming herself for her mother's death. They tried to tie that in twice with like letting them back into the cabin, and then also at the end when she was like, I thought she was talking Madeline to death at the end, but she was actually, like, it was like she was freeing her spirit, but she started to like glow. I'm like, oh my god, is Mina talking her to death? Because I'm dying over here, like this killing me, right? So
That'd be great.
but they tried to tie it in with the story with the
So-
it just didn't work.
but I do agree that they tried. Well, even Ryan's been saying, like, they tried a lot to try to like
Mhm.
tie things together, but
I mean, it just was so ham-fisted. It was like, yeah, you literally did the thing, but I do not care.
So
Yeah.
this was
There's nothing
also-
behind it. Like it just felt hollow.
This was based on a book,
I knew that, which is crazy to me. Like
From-
how I'm interested in the book, honestly, because it must have been drastically different.
Usually adaptations are good too, where they can actually, because there's a good story in a book usually, but
I mean,
I'm very curious about
I'd
that
actually,
book.
and I think it's like an Irish writer, and I think it's like maybe I don't even know if it's like a full book. I think it might be a short story. So I would also be interested to see how much has changed from the book, because possibly everything. Although he is well, I guess he's credited. I mean, he's credited as a writer, but I guess that's because of the book, you know. So
maybe when she read it, there was like a loss of translation from Irish English to American English.
possibly,
Sorry.
but I don't think so.
Do you think part of the reason you thought it was vampires is because her name is Mina and her sister's name is also from Dracula?
I did not make that connection, but I did read that in the trivia, so
Yeah.
possibly. Which, once again, then why wasn't it a vampire? Like,
Yeah. Again,
could've-
no
truthfully-
reason other than seemingly, I guess the author liked that
Well,
book.
no, but truthfully, it could have been like Walter said. There was nothing about blood, right?
Mm-mm.
So add it. This movie could have added a horror,
Well, no, but that's not a
Right?
movie thing. Those were the character names in the book too. I looked because was that a real thing? Like, no, those were the names.
No,
of the
but what I'm saying is like, if they would have went the vampire route, they could have added all this stuff. Like she gets cut, and there's blood, and like they could have added all this extra stuff in there.
But for whatever reason, it was an intentional decision to do that in a movie not about vampires. I don't know why.
That's yeah. I didn't know that before I made my vampire connection, but that's another kind of huge question mark for me: is why that in a movie about fairies?
Why that is
I
basically
thought-
what you could say after any statement about this movie.
Oh man, I think I have to lower my rating a lot more than I already did. But
Same. I was gonna be generous, but now I'm like,
I was like, maybe because I watched it, I was like, all right, whatever, I forget it, and then I'm like, oh man, nothing connected, and then I went to bed. Like that's how I watched the movie. But all right, well, before we go to the ratings, which we'll get into it. What else did I forget? I don't think I forgot anything on this one. This one I had a feeling we'd be able to talk about for a while, but
there's nothing to talk about. It was so confusing. All we're
I'm
doing is
sorry.
saying questions. That's this whole time we're talking is just asking question after question and not giving explanations.
I mean, again, the general plot, I get it. Okay, there are fairies. Fairies can mimic people. Some guy tried to get a fairy to mimic his dead wife. It went poorly. And now the fairies trap people there to keep trying to mimic. But, like, that's the broad strokes. But once you start to break it down, almost none of that makes sense either.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I think the motivation, now that you're bringing it up, is like what. That's kind of what we were like.
And again, like the motivation of any of the fairies is, it's like we got to trap these people here so that we can try and mimic them. It's like, well, how much time do you need? Like, give me like something. Like, what are you working towards? You've been doing this for, I assume centuries at this
There's
point.
no goal. There's no goal. It's just.
And you're still trapped here.
Even better.
You can't leave just because you look like a person. So then what? Then you can trap more people there to continue to try to mimic. Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do?
They obviously had access to a television. So couldn't you just watch TV? Because
Right,
essentially
well,
you
I
put
think
them
they
in a
just had that
box
one
that was
VHS,
making
which
like a TV, like a reality TV show, right? So
Yeah. After so many times, though, it's like I already
Wait a
know who
minute.
won.
That was the connection. They had that one like episode or that one season of that weird reality show they were watching, but this was a reality show for the fairies. Is that what you're saying?
yes, that's what it was. Wasn't it not?
Kind of, yeah.
Sorry.
They put him in a box. That's a
Kind
giant
of.
television.
I mean, I still think the Watcher thing would have made more sense if they were like, okay, now that you've bred with us and a human, now the kids, halflings, are watching them. So you take some to mate with, and you keep some in that house, and they have to watch them to learn what the kids have to learn what the humans do. That would have made a lot more sense to me.
100%. You're 100% correct. If that was the motivation of, listen, we need to trap more people here so that we can mate with them to make more halflings, and then the halflings go out and leave and live a life. But that doesn't appear to be
Yo.
the
No.
motivation of
It's
anyone.
not.
Okay, so
But also, I
I'm
don't
gonna look up the book.
I think
Anyone out
other than
there, let's-
I think the professor was the only one that understood that thing about the halflings too. I don't think that
Even the Watchers knew.
yeah, and I don't think why am I blanking on the old woman's name?
Madeline.
Madeline.
Madeline. Yeah, I don't like Madeline didn't realize that she could leave. She was like, "Oh shit, I can leave." So
And then when she was on the boat, when they were like, "Can they swim?" and she was like, "I don't know." She didn't even know she could swim.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean the answer is probably no due
Okay.
to lack of experience.
Wow. All right, so all the movies we all pitched or should have been. Like I said, if anyone out there has read the book, please let us know. I mean, I might look into it, but maybe everything we're saying was in the book. Like maybe something about breeding with the fairies and all this stuff.
Doubt it.
I mean,
Doubt it.
even just,
I'm hoping.
like if you said maybe it was a short story, like maybe a short story would be better just because like again, I feel like leaving stuff to the imagination could have worked
Yeah.
to the benefit of this movie. So
Mhm.
because the more happened, the less it made sense.
That's true. So, well, I'm gonna look it up, but I think you might be surprised at the ratings. But let's get into it for a second here.
Oh no.
I don't know, maybe not.
Mm.
All right, so let's see.
I have
So
no clue.
IMDb on average 5.7 out of 10. I feel the
pretty high.
critics are at 32% out of 100, which I think they had all probably the same problems we had. And then the audience score is at 52%. So right down the middle, but I think it's more of a they didn't do what we just did and they didn't talk about it afterwards. They were like, I think I liked it, and then moved on to the like we kind of
Probably.
brought it all up and kind of stuff like that.
I mean,
So
those are pretty middling scores. I mean, yeah, the overall like the broad story was like, yeah, you told me a fairy tale. That's
what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
that's fine. But like
That's how I came into it. But then as soon as we started talking about stuff, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't like
Yeah,
that. Oh wait,
like
I didn't like that. Oh wait, I didn't like that. I didn't even understand
Yeah.
that. Like so.
that's what I mean. Like ultimately, it's like yeah, okay, so that's the fairy tale, but why? Why that?
So I can't imagine. I'm gonna pick a random order and see if but I'm gonna have to go with. We have to go with Ryan. He had the most problems with this. I know it's not high, and I know it's not a 5, but
Yeah.
what is your banana rating out of 10 for this one?
Yeah, I mean, again, the broad story, they're fairy tales. They can mimic people. There's this enchanted forest. Who enchanted it? I don't know. Somehow humans used to be able to do magic to trap fairies. I don't know. Not explained. A lot of it's not explained. But yeah, it was just there are way too many issues. Again, I feel like a lot of them could have been solved by telling us less about things that are uninteresting and don't make sense. Or again, just give one of the main characters motivation that I can understand at all. Again, a character that in theory should be quite interesting and really, really wasn't to me.
That's
So yeah,
oh man, I don't know. I'm curious.
geez, I'm gonna give it 3.5 bananas. It just was not very good. I mean, the acting wasn't bad, so like that helped, but
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't good, but nothing about the acting really stood out to me as problematic. It was more the issues with
Yeah.
the story and the motivations and all the things that they couldn't really help as actors.
So I'm going 66 next. I have no real order for this, except for I knew Ryan was going to be pretty low, but let's see what we got.
So they focused on things that probably should not have been focused on. And they didn't actually flesh out the stuff that would have been interesting and made the story enjoyable and make sense. I wouldn't say it's confusing. I think it just doesn't make sense. And I don't think the acting was bad. I think that the writing led to bad, like the actors not doing a good job. Dakota Fanning the entire time. I almost couldn't stand her. And I don't think she's a bad actress at all. I just couldn't stand what she was saying and what she was doing almost the entire movie. She literally, I had to write this down. She asked the bird in the car, "What's your story? What are you running from?" First of all, the bird is being sold. It's not running from anything.
It's
right?
trapped in a cage.
It's trapped in a cage. And if it was going to run, it would fly. So that's the second thing. And thirdly, if that was an attempt at diving into Mina as a character, it didn't really come together because it wasn't like, what was she running from? She wasn't really running. She was delivering a bird. I don't know. The movie was stupid. I'm giving it 2.5.
Ooh. All right.
She was doing her job, and the bird was in a cage. Neither of them were running.
Right.
But once again, I've seen that. I've seen where like humans talk to like, stuff or animals or something like that, and it plays better. Do you see what I'm saying? Like I've seen where that plays better, either as maybe comedy or something else. So
Yeah, because normally you say something to the animal that makes sense given the context of this, what's happening.
correct.
Not just saying something that absolutely doesn't fit.
Like a Die Hard moment. Like, do you see what's happening here?
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Not like, well, we gotta put something in this scene. She can't say nothing, right? It's like, yeah, say something. It's like, what's your story? That doesn't work at all, does it? Yeah, leave it.
You could say nothing. It would have been better. My only hope, I'm sorry, I'll stop after this. My only hope is that Daughter Night Shyamalan figures it out and takes these constructive criticisms that maybe she can, like her father will give her and other directors and people, and maybe she'll learn and grow, because if this is her first directing, right?
Oh yeah, and writing.
Yeah.
Like, she could be the opposite of her father. Her father came out with like a home run, and then maybe she can go the opposite way.
Oh, her
I'm
sixth
rooting
sense
for
is
her.
still on the horizon.
Like,
Yeah, her sixth sense is on the way.
I hope so, because
But
I think there's some good solid ideas that just weren't developed properly. And if she can get that down.
But they weren't her ideas because it was based on a short story.
that's the other thing. Maybe
She can change it. You have to stick to the story.
I think she did into what we didn't like.
maybe. All right, Walter. What, I don't know. I thought you'd have actually more to say this episode, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, but it was just so bad that I'm at a loss for words. Like, I didn't know what to say. Like, every time I even had a thought, it'd be like, well, they didn't answer it anyway, so why? I came into this, I wanted to say, good job. This was a good first attempt, daughter M. Night Shyamalan, but no, this, but like 66 said, hopefully you can use this as a springboard and do better next time. I do also think it's a little unfair that if we compare her to her father, because
I agree with that too. Yeah.
Actually, let me rephrase that. Compare her to the home runs that her father made. Anything from now, like anything current, oh yeah, you can compare all you want because they both suck, so it's fine. But this one's just too many problems, too many issues. Just everything about it was just pretty bad. I started out at a 4, I think, and I'm going down to a 2.
Oh,
after we talked about
Dang.
this.
Oh boy.
Steep decline. I actually also started a 4, and I was like, no, it's not. It's a little lower than that.
Yeah, the more you talked, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make sense either.
I was around I was at a 5, but I came into it with like I just had a lot of questions, and I was like, well, maybe my guys here can answer it, and then it just got worse. So, yeah, I had high hopes too. I am a Shyamalan fan, and I had all this stuff, but I don't want to just reiterate everything. But if I personally thought it was vampires the whole time, and then it really wasn't, that's also a big sign that maybe you didn't tell me the right information. So, I think it goes back to the right information and all that stuff. So. I'm going to a 4. Like, I wanted it to be better. Maybe that's even high. I mean, this is the second week I'm like the highest, which is rare. But I don't know. Let us know your banana rating out of 10. I don't know if you. I got nothing to say.
That's the whole movie. That's all.
Like,
that's our review.
Even the stuff I liked about it, like I was glad it wasn't just like humans in this forest like doing something like creepy. Like I was like, okay, supernatural, I got it. And then even like Ryan said, the stuff that you made up and you told me, I was like, okay, sure, I guess. But there was so many other things that just didn't connect, and that was kind of what, I was left with that. So I don't know.
Yeah, like I would say the origin of like the fairies was the only part of it that kind of worked for me. I was like, okay, you're telling me that's the origin of fairies? Fine, no problem. Now tell me why I care about anything that's happening in this movie. They did.
Yeah. So
man, no, it's fine. I don't need to say this.
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead.
It's probably. Well, no, I watched
Close it
Rings
out.
of Power, and there's a scene. It's probably 5 minutes that you're introduced to a horse that lost its master. It's 5 minutes.
Oh.
He gets released, and he fights off some orcs, and he goes into a cave and fights off some this horse. And you're like, and it's done kind of well. And I cared more about that horse not dying from the orcs and the spiders than I cared about any character in this movie. A horse for 5 minutes on screen.
I cared more about that horse from your description of that horse than I cared about anything in this movie.
Yeah, me too, actually.
I was invested. I was like, oh shit, this horse sounds cool.
Can I lower my rating then? Because
Yeah,
the
I
horse
do.
runner. I mean, we should all just drop our rating even more.
No, we can't drop our rating. It's locked in. But we'll close it with just let us know your rating. Type it in the chat. Let us know your banana rating out of 10. Listen, if you agree with us, let us know. Like, subscribe, share this because we want to know. And if you disagree with us, we almost want to know more why you disagree with us. And you have to like come back because we're actually more curious when people disagree. But sorry, this one was a miss. Next week, I have high hopes. I say that every week, so I'm not going to say that. But next week, I have high hopes. One of these weeks, it's going to be correct.
It has to be next week. It better be good.
Quack you next time.
Well, like I always say with sequels and remakes, they're bound to be good.
Ooh, I love ending it on weird comments like that.